Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're peeling back the layers on the world's biggest companies to ask a really simple question. Who is actually in charge? We're going to dive into the hidden rulebook that can make or break a company.
So, what do all these have in common? It might sound like the setup to a crazy story, but the answer is a concept called corporate governance. You can think of it as the invisible wiring inside a company, the system that dictates who has the power, where the money goes, and who is held accountable.
Okay, so let's break this down. At the very heart of it all is a really simple idea, the principal-agent relationship. Think about it like this. You hire a mechanic to fix your car. You are the principal, and the mechanic is your agent. You're trusting them to do the job right and act in your best interest. Simple enough, right?
Well, in a big corporation, that simple relationship gets way more complicated. It's not just one link, it's a whole chain. The shareholders are the ultimate principals. They own the company. They hire an agent, the board of directors, to look out for them. Then the board hires another agent, the management team, to actually run the company day to day. In theory, everyone is working to make the shareholders money. But, and this is a big but, here's the problem. The agent, say the CEO running the company, almost always knows more about the business than the principal, the shareholder. And what happens when the CEO's personal interests don't quite line up with the owners? Well, that's when you get conflict.
And these conflicts can pop up in all sorts of ways. Maybe a manager is just kind of phoning it in or focusing on their own pet projects. Or maybe they're playing it too safe, avoiding risks that could really grow the company just because their bonus is all cash. Or it could be something worse, like empire building, just buying other companies to get bigger and justify a bigger salary, even if it hurts the shareholder. And it's not just a manager versus owner thing. You can get fights between the owners themselves. Imagine a founding family that controls a majority of the stock versus thousands of small investors. The family might want to play the long game, thinking about the next 50 years. But the smaller investors, they might want the company to take a big risk right now for quick payoff. Their goals are just totally different. So how does a small group get so much power? Well, one of the most controversial ways is through something called a dual-class share structure. Basically, the company creates two types of stock, one for regular folks like us that gets 1 vote per share, and a special class for insiders that might get 10 or 100 votes per share. Experts pretty much hate this because it lets a tiny group of insiders completely control the company. For a really jaw-dropping example of this, check out the auto parts company Magna International. For a long time, they had their regular Class A shares with 1 vote. And then they had Class B shares held by the founder's family that had, wait for it, 500 votes per share. Not 5, 500. And this chart just shows you how wild that is. Because of that 500 to 1 power imbalance, the founder's family owned just 3% of the company, but they controlled 75% of the votes. This let them pay themselves massive fees, even when the company's stock wasn't doing so great. It's the ultimate power play.
Okay, so this sounds like a mess waiting to happen, right? With all these competing interests, how do you actually keep everyone in line? Well, that's where the corporate rulebook comes into play. It's a whole toolkit of things designed to create some balance.
Now, shareholders aren't completely helpless here. They have a few key tools in their arsenal. There's the annual general meeting where they get to vote on the board members and executive pay. You also have activist investors who can launch proxy fights to try and convince other shareholders to kick out the current board. And then there's the ultimate threat, the corporate takeover. If you run the company poorly, someone might just buy it out from under you and fire everyone. Right at the center of this whole system is the board of directors. And its real power is channeled through a few crucial committees. The big 3 are the audit committee, which makes sure the company's books are accurate, the nominating committee, which picks new board members, and the compensation committee, which decides how much the top execs get paid. Now, the whole point of these committees, and this is absolutely crucial, is independence. For this to work, the people on these committees, especially audit and compensation, can't be company insiders. You can't have management auditing their own homework, or even worse, setting their own multi-million-dollar paychecks. That's literally letting the fox guard the henhouse. So when this whole toolkit of rules and oversight actually works, companies can do amazing things. But when it breaks down, oh boy, the consequences can be an absolute catastrophe. I mean, just look at the story of Theranos. This was a Silicon Valley darling that promised to revolutionize healthcare, was valued at $10 billion, and then it all came crashing down into one of the biggest frauds we've ever seen.
So what went wrong? Well, when investigators finally looked under the hood, they found a complete and total failure of governance. The board was packed with famous people, sure, but almost none of them had any real expertise in medical tech. They failed to ask the tough questions, they ignored obvious conflicts of interest, and they shut down the whistleblowers who were trying to tell them the truth.
Or how about Volkswagen's Dieselgate scandal? This was a textbook case of a company culture so focused on winning at any cost that it led engineers to literally install illegal software in their cars to cheat on emissions tests. When the scandal broke, it sent shockwaves through the entire auto industry, and the company's stock just went into a free fall. And the price tag for that failure? It's just mind-blowing. The scandal has cost Volkswagen over 32 billion euros so far in fines, recalls, and legal fees. A staggering price to pay for a breakdown in ethics and internal oversight.
Okay, but it's not all doom and gloom. Far from it. The flip side is that getting this stuff right has huge benefits. Study after study shows that companies with strong governance simply perform better. It makes sense, right? Good oversight leads to smarter decisions, better risk management, and a clear focus on long-term success. It gives investors a confidence that their money is in good hands.
So here's the big takeaway from all this. Corporate governance isn't some boring technical detail you can ignore. It is the very foundation of a company's potential for success or failure. So the next time you look at any company, ask yourself those questions. Who's on the board? How are they getting paid? And who is really calling the shots? The answers will tell you almost everything you need to know.